All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm sure some folks are still going to be logging on to GoToWebinar into our webinar today. But first of all, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today for our School Garden Support Organization's Best Practices webinar. My name is Stephanie Kitchler, and I work for the kitchen community. And myself and a couple of folks on the line today, we also serve on the advisory committee of the National School Garden Network. Today I'm going to be facilitating, I'll join in a little conversation too, but facilitating the webinar discussing models for training garden educators. I want to take a moment real quick just to familiarize everyone with the control panel that you guys are looking at. First and foremost, we're going to upload some handouts in just a moment, and you'll see a little handouts tab, and we'll have a PDF of the PowerPoint deck that we're using today for your reference. If we can't get that uploaded during the presentation right now, because I'm not sure if we have that ability since we're started, we'll make sure we send that out when the webinar is over. We're also recording this webinar today, so you guys will be able to reference the actual video archive of it using our forum that we have. And then two other things that I want to draw your attention to. We're going to be having a couple of times for you guys to use the chat box down below. We might ask you some questions. We might have you type something in there. So there's a little chat box down below. However, if you guys have any questions, or if you folks have any questions out there related to the content and materials that are being presented, you'll see a little drop-down tab for questions. And go ahead and just add that in there. And then you can go ahead and get a response back to that. We can either make it an openly responded question, or we can respond directly to you as well. So myself and Whitney Cohen from Life Lab will be monitoring those questions as they roll in today. Awesome. So a bit of an introduction to the National School Garden Network. We are a group of school garden support professionals who, for the first time, met at the 2012 National Farm to School Conference, Cafeteria Conference. And during that conference, the folks that met came up with an idea to create a space for dialogue, connectedness, communication between organizations, so that together we can work forward to reach the goals of our individual organizations. So we truly feel that communication, collaboration, and connectedness bring us together and make us all stronger and better. Today, we are an advisory group. We call ourselves the National School Garden Network. And I'm going to show you guys and go through a couple of slides that tell you a little bit more about what we do. So what is the National School Garden Network? One thing that we've done together is that we've created a forum. Let's go ahead and go over to the forum right here. Perfect. We've created a forum with a couple of different things on the forum. You'll see that we have different links here in blue. We can click on these links, and then it takes you to a whole different website that shows you webinars, resources, discussion threads, things like that. It's a really, really neat. So if you click on, for example, Garden to Cafeteria, it'll take you to a page that shows you discussions, conversations, a whole slew of resources that relate to garden to cafeteria. Another way you can use this forum is by using the search bar up top. The search bar is really great because you can just type in a keyword like design. If you type that in, a whole bunch of different discussions and resources related to garden design will pop up and will be right at your fingertips. Awesome. So let's see. What this forum also does is it allows organizations, individuals, whoever is accessing this forum, and it's open to everyone, to be able to communicate and talk. So it really creates a network and a communication network for everyone to work together. Great. So something else that we're doing as a National School Garden Network is we're working together to create and to support these best practices webinar. Today we're going to be viewing the models for training garden educators. And last year, actually last school year, we had webinars on sustainability and program sustainability and finances. maintaining multiple school gardens, measuring impact. And then coming up soon in October, we'll have one on creating, supporting, and harnessing a school garden network local to your region. So we use this National School Garden Network website right here. This links you to all the webinar archives. It'll also link you to our forum. And it's a great place to go to get all the information that we have with the National School Garden Network. Great, so the final thing we do is we really try to see each other in person. It's great to connect over the forum and to have discussions. It's great to connect over these webinars and hear people's voices and to hear from professionals and leaders in the school garden support organization world. But face-to-face gatherings are just a fantastic way to grow and to empower each other. So coming up, we'll have a gathering during the North American Association of Environmental Education, which is in sunny San Juan, Puerto Rico. And then we will, pending some approval and some location information, hope to be having a gathering at the National Farm to Cafeteria Conference, which was just recently announced and will be in Cincinnati, Ohio in 2018, which is very exciting that it's coming up. Awesome. So we're going to get started with today's webinar, Professional Development Models for Training Garden Educators. On the line today, you're going to hear from Vanessa Ford. She's the Director of Curriculum and Training from Real School Gardens. Carrie Schroll is an independent consultant. And Sarah Russell is a Special Project Coordinator for Green Our Planet. We also have a couple other people on the line. As I mentioned, Whitney Cohen is on the line from LifeLab. She'll be helping us out with some questions. And then Tristana Perkle from Whole Kids Foundation is on the line. And she's going to be going through some other information right now about who's on the line today. So Tristana, I'm going to pass this over to you and have you get started. Sorry guys, I'm getting Tristana unmuted. There we go, Tristana.
Great. Hi, everyone. Give me 1 minute. Do you want me to share my screen, Stephanie?
I think I have it up right here.
Oh, you got it up. There you go. Great. Awesome. Hi, everyone. This is Tristana Perkle with Whole Kids Foundation. I am the Grant Programs Manager. We're so excited to host this webinar series. And we want to just share a little bit quick information about us in case you don't know. We are Whole Kids Foundation. We support children's health and wellness through the food that they eat by supporting schools and inspiring families. We have a number of programs. Check us out on our website. But we wanted to make sure you knew about our grant windows that are currently open. Our $2,000 garden grant application is open now until November 15th. And our Honeybee grant application for either a $1,500 grant or an equipment grant of a honeybee hive is available until October 31st. We will be doing some webinars specifically about those programs, so check those out and sign up for those on our website. We actually have one tomorrow on our garden grant program. But I will now dive into just some fun facts about who is in the room, who registered for this webinar. It's always great to see how far-reaching this work is. So almost 400 people registered for this webinar from 5 different countries. Including the US, Canada, Brazil, India, and China. In the US alone, we cover 47 states, DC, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And together we all support over 5,200 gardens. And we come from all sorts of different types of organizations. The majority of people who registered are from nonprofits, but also come from school or district entities, as well as extension offices, government organizations, school food service, and other coalitions as well. But right now, we would love to hear from you all, specifically who's in the room today, on what your role is at your organization. So I'm going to launch our poll. If you could use your computer or your phone, whatever you're logged into, to let us know what your role is, whether that's a teacher, school administrator, school garden support, or garden educator, or a part of a parent-teacher organization or other. I'll give you just a little bit of time to let us know who y'all are. Great. So just to share, it looks like the majority of people here are from a school garden support organization or are garden educators, followed shortly by just an other category. So it looks like we've got a fun group of people here.
Awesome. Thanks, Tristana. So we're going to continue to get started. See if I can switch. I'm going to pass the whole system off to Vanessa, and she's going to drive for a little while and dive on into the webinar. So I'm going to switch this over. Perfect.
Hi, everybody. This is Vanessa Ford with Real School Gardens. I'm the Director of Training and Curriculum. I joined Real School Gardens last year after 15 years of teaching in DC schools with a focus on STEM education. And I have a real passion for experiential learning and using the outdoors as a real instructional tool for students. I have with me today two co-presenters. I'm going to let them speak a little bit about who they are, and then we'll get started with the different models and how we came about this work.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Russell. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for Green Our Planet, located in Las Vegas, Nevada. I joined Green Our Planet about a year ago, but my background is in sustainability research. And I'm now doing event coordination, grant writing, and volunteer coordination for Green Our Planet, which is a nonprofit. So I'm excited to be here.
Great. And moving on to Carrie. There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am working in the Bay Area, primarily as an independent consultant. I'm a former school garden educator and researcher, and I have background in curriculum development and professional development, and I will be sharing some information about one particular school that I work with.
Great. So that's the three of us. We're all over the country. I failed to mention I am based in Washington, D.C., where our national office is, but we are all over. So to start the work, I just wanted to frame a little bit about where it came from. I know Stephanie mentioned that in December of last year, we came together for the Leadership Institute, and my cohort was tasked with really looking at all of the different models for training garden educators that are out there, what they are, putting them into buckets, seeing what similarities they had, pros, cons, cost, and before even doing that, saying what's our vision? What do we see as important to these models for professional development? And the vision that we came up with as a team, representing I think about 10 different school garden organizations nationally, was that a successful school garden PD, it supports school communities and uses those gardens as an instructional tool. I think we all felt very strongly that the instructional tool was key. What we were instructing on may differ, whether it was science, nutrition, food science, social emotional growth, but it was an instructional tool. And that we would work with the stakeholders, the individuals at that school, whether it was a single teacher all the way to the school level to organizations, to put everything together and make sure that that garden, that outdoor classroom could be truly integrated into the learning culture of the school, and that professional development should support that in happening. And I'm sure many of you would agree that that's easier said than done. And so many of us across the country are this network, this web, who use all these different methods, and hopefully we're successfully finding ways to truly integrate our gardens into the learning culture of the schools. So I'm curious just to know what's out there. What is the primary training model that you use at your organization, school, district? And we're going to show you some options, and those are the options that we're going to be discussing in depth. We know they're not all of them, but these are some of them. So we'll give you a few minutes for that. The polls are open. And this is fun. I get to see it in live time. I wish I had music. All right, Tristana. Perfect. Polls have closed. We're going to see what we have here as our results. Bear with us. So it looks like you are viewing them. I can't see them on my screen, so sorry for that. It looks like we have a wide range, with most identifying as teacher training or site-specific professional development. So nearly half of us are working directly with teachers on the ground. Some of us use conferences. The online tools, trainings, and webinars like we're doing now seems to be a big chunk, and the workshops. The garden educator professional learning communities seems to be smaller. That's something that I think could be a really interesting topic later, because again, we're on this webinar from everywhere as educators, and maybe it's something we all want a little more of. So I'm going to jump into each model that you just talked about, and then your screens are going to be filled with too much text. I broke the teacher rule 101. Don't put too much text, but there's a lot of text. The first model that we worked on was that teacher training and site-specific PD. Each one of our models, we spent a fair amount of time breaking down into 3 parts: a description of that model, the pros and cons of that model, and the general cost. I don't have a very specific $1 sign to $5 sign what it equals, but just know that 1 is very, very cheap and 5 could be quite expensive. So these teacher training and site-specific PD models are a true partnership that's between the school and the school garden support organization. Sometimes it's the district and the school garden support organization. They're intensive, they're long-term, they involve multiple trainings that integrate curriculum, gardening skills, outdoor group management. They can include community, grant writing, cooking, nutrition, STEM, whatever the focus of the organization is. And they vary in intensity based on resources available. I know that seems really straightforward, but I think what I found very interesting is the different ways that so many organizations are approaching this teacher training and site-specific PD in unique and exciting ways. The pros here: you meet the needs of the schools. It's tailored to what they need. Schools have the support early on, and they can also learn to sustain the garden over time. Sometimes that's just based on buy-in, right? And there's these relationships built between the school and the organization. Biggest con here: resource intensive. And if you're a SGSO, if you're a school garden support organization, those resources are likely staff, having staff to be there and do all of these things. You also need real experienced education professionals. So these are people who are really able to look at the standards, look at what is being taught in curriculum, and align it to the outdoor classroom, to those garden spaces. Without that, we tend to lose some of the teacher buy-in. You also need that big commitment from the school. Well, if you don't have that commitment, unfortunately, it may not go as well. And one of the biggest things that we came up with is that if we are there doing all of these partnerships, we don't necessarily always have built in a release of responsibility where people have their resources to continue on our own when we're gone. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to talk about what Green Our Planet's model for teacher training and site-specific professional development is, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what Real School Gardens does. Sarah?
Thanks. So Green Our Planet, we, again, are based in Las Vegas, and we use a lot of different models. The way that we utilize the site-specific professional development is twofold. We have a coordinator on staff, multiple coordinators on staff that go to each of our school gardens and meet with a garden team of teachers monthly. And that team of teachers is made up of ideally a teacher from each grade and a principal, counselor, any other interested parties, which helps us basically have a core group of teachers that if there's turnover or someone retires, the garden isn't falling into disarray, but it will continue to be used, you know, far, far into the future. Our coordinators are consultants for the teachers, they're support for the teachers, and they pollinate, quote unquote, ideas between each school that they go to. So we get a lot of intercommunication that way. And their main goal is to inspire the teachers and support the teachers and help them understand that taking their kids out into the garden is easy and proven to really influence kids positively. The other way that we train teachers is through our GOP farmer, who is either a trained horticulturalist or a master gardener that's on our staff. And they go into each of our gardens once a week for an hour, and they work directly in the gardens with students and teachers on maintaining the gardens, learning about the plant physiology and how plants grow. And their goal is pure education for both the teachers and the students, so that after 1 year of our programming, the school can take on the garden, they know what to do, and then Green Arc Planet can just be a consulting firm for them rather than us going in every week. So we chose this model basically because we have quality control over the gardens that we've built. We can maintain them, we know what's going on with them, we can help teachers to learn about irrigation and soil. And it also builds a lot of really tight relationships and trust between the school and Green Arc Planet, and builds interest in the garden by these teachers and students. And of course, it's really fun. It is a higher cost, salary, tools, a lot of time going into that, but you do have such a direct impact in the garden with these teachers and students. It's really rewarding. Next slide.
Next slide to me. And it's really interesting because we also are teacher training and site-specific PD, but our focus is a little bit different at Real School Gardens. So we use the gardens in the outdoor classroom as an instructional tool. So we don't explicitly teach gardening, but we utilize what is happening in that garden through a multi-year partnership where we create an integrated instructional plan with school leadership and a cohort of teachers who become teacher leaders at the school. We look at what their scope and sequence is, what teachers are teaching that year, what we could teach using the garden and the outdoor classroom to support student engagement, exploration, and understanding of that concept. We then have instructional coaches who are veteran teachers, most with master's degrees, and they go out and work one-on-one in coaching cycles with students and teachers at schools. So we model a lesson, an academic lesson using the garden with a teacher and their students. Then we come back and we observe the teacher and their students, really looking at student engagement, looking at questioning, looking at exploration. Then we plan with the teacher for the final observation where the teacher hopefully has built up some understanding of how to plan an outdoor lesson using the garden. And this happens over a series of years. We also have instructional resources available online. This is launching this fall, but when we cannot be present as coaches, our coaches will come to our partner schools via the internet. We have videos they'll show you a little bit later about how we address that. And then finally, throughout the year, each one of our partner schools has a garden coordinator. This is someone who isn't necessarily a master gardener, but somebody who is listened to at the school, who's a great advocate for the outdoor classroom, and can rally the school in making sure that sustainable practices are happening and that the garden is watered and weeded and being used, and there's a schedule. And those garden coordinators come together 3 times a year to work with the coaches on the sustainability piece. We have been around for about a decade, and one of the things that we find is we know that teachers have a lot to do, and the more we can really integrate into what they're already doing, showing them the value that a garden or an outdoor classroom brings, the better we can leave them when we come out. And we also know that students are so engaged. I wish I could see faces, but when you bring students outside, they're so engaged, and we hope to show them that through our on-site PD. All right, So this next part, I actually want you to think out there. I can't see you all, but in the chat, I'd love you, if you have a conference or a summit that you either attend or your organization runs, please put it up in the chat, because these sometimes run from huge to quite small. For example, the one in San Juan, Puerto Rico, I have not heard an update regarding Irma, because I know it's in a few weeks, but it's a huge conference. To smaller ones like the Georgia Farm to School and Preschool Summit. I want to go to that one. It was in 2015. Hopefully it's coming back. These conferences and summits are larger in scale. They involve multiple stakeholders, multiple days, field experts, multifaceted. They take a lot of planning. One of the pros is that you have all these people in one space. It's a brain dump of people where a lot of organizations can get a lot of information about the specific topic that you're focusing on. You also have choice, right? A lot of times in professional development, teachers don't have that much choice. And in these settings, you have teachers who can come, and if they're really interested in nutrition, if they're really interested in STEM or environmental literacy, they may be able to pick a track within that conference that really speaks to them, which would get them out using that garden. And it builds networks and builds content. Cons, expensive. You generally need an outside funder. You need location. You need to get people in to speak. And marketing and selection to fill conference and capacity can take some time. So if you put in all this money to a conference, you need to get people to go there. And sometimes that costs a lot. And we know that not all organizations have that. So that's one of the reasons I'd love for you to go into chat and list for us your conferences that you may have coming up. Just provide a link and we can put those together, because that's one way of us to see what's happening out there outside of what we may know. Excuse me. Apparently something named Vanessa just popped up as a reminder.
Hey, this is Stephanie. I just want to throw in real quick that it appears as though I think only the organizers can chat.
Put it in questions then.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people drop their conferences into questions, and so myself and Whitney will look at those, and then we will shoot out a larger chat, or we can shoot this out in the follow-up, because we'll have all these questions recorded. Sorry about that, guys, for the confusion earlier.
Yeah, no, that's actually great, because I think one of the biggest cons is that marketing piece. And what I think I really was impressed with when we met out last year in December were these summits and conferences that very small organizations were holding and putting in so much work. So if there's a way for us to share what you're doing and kind of get others around that, that would be great. So throw those in the questions for sure. All right, and Green Our Planet, Sarah's coming back to talk about what their conference is, and it's in Vegas in May, so tell us about it.
Yes, everyone should come. If you need an excuse to go to Vegas, this is a great opportunity. We will be having our 5th annual School Garden Conference on May 5th at Springs Preserve, which is an outdoor garden area here in Las Vegas, not at a casino. There will be more information on our website in late December, early January on this, or you can go to schoolgardenconference.com, which currently has last year's conference information available, but will be updated soon. So we do this once a year. It's a full day, totally open to the public. However, teachers are able to receive the professional development credit for attending, and that's credit that Clark County School District here in Las Vegas requires for teachers. This past year, we had about 50 speakers, 8 panels. We had 3 groups of student speakers that talked about their experience. And this year we're adding on garden tours where we're leading attendees through what the Green Our Planet garden and teaching gardens look like. This past year we had topics on horticulture, teaching in the garden, teaching special ed in the garden, financing garden sustainability, on and on, anything and everything to do with garden education. And we really enjoy this model. It's a great way for the community to really engage with each other, talk to each other, get excited about garden education. And we like to have a lot of multi-topic education going on. So it's not just us showing how to plant and maintain a garden, but it goes so much further with how to get money for your garden, how to work with corporate sponsors. And we have presentations and speakers that talked about beginning a garden to people that are quite advanced and want to do composting or something more complicated. And really the goal here is engaging the public in the school garden movement and spreading those ideas. Las Vegas is a very interesting place to have a school garden organization. A lot of the Las Vegas community doesn't know how to grow food in the Mojave Desert, has never experienced that growing like a lot of other more wet states get. But this conference helps engage them and show them that you can grow your own food. It doesn't have to be imported from California. The kids are doing it, so everyone can. And for us, since we're a nonprofit, it is a lower cost since our location is donated, our food is donated, a lot of our supplies are donated, which is really great. It is a high return. We use it as a fundraiser for Green Our Planet, gives us a little bit of PR, builds those relationships. Though it does take a lot of time and effort into planning it, but it is a blast on the day, so everyone should come. Next slide.
All right. So ironically, I'm not going to talk too much about webinars. I'm going to turn it over to Whitney with LifeLab because she is the webinar queen. But before we do, we're doing a webinar right now. We represent almost all of the states. There's hundreds of us on. While we can't see each other, we're directly in contact with a target group where we're all interested in this topic. And we can share this after. We can share information that we have at it. And it's free or low cost. So no travel is needed. The hard part here is body language. You can't see us. And we can't see you. We can't interact with you. We just have to assume you're cheering for us on the other end, like, wow, this is so interesting. And you need to have an online platform, and technical difficulties can arise, which periodically they do. But the cost can be really, really nominal. And so I'd love to turn it over to Whitney, where she can talk about how LifeLab uses webinars and Hangouts for Garden.
Hi, thanks, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. It's great to join you today. Yeah, I think that Vanessa really captured my favorite and least favorite part of webinars. My favorite part is that people don't have to travel, and so everyone has access, often for free, to the information, which seems critical to the movement. My least favorite part is the lack of interaction and lack of that you can't do hands-on things. You know, we can't all plant together or build a compost pile together. So that's a downside. I would say gardening with kids is not something ideally learned through webinars, but it is a great jumping off point. It's a great kind of chance to share information with each other and to get started. And the way we use them at LifeLab is we've hosted webinars that you can see. The link is at the bottom of this slide, lifelab.org/webinars, and we've hosted webinars that are now archived there on the topics that are best suited to being taught, that it's okay to teach without a hands-on aspect, I guess, and that are the most popular for people, the things we get requests for the most. So if you go to that website, we have links to our webinars there on Common Core in the garden, Next Gen Science in the garden, funding your garden, garden design, that kind of thing. Just basically the questions that people ask all the time. We try to create webinars on those and post them so that everyone has access to that information. I'm happy if you have questions about that, you can type them into the question box, but otherwise I'll turn it back to Vanessa.
I should have hit this initially. I forgot I was in control for a moment. And so if you just go to LifeLab, everything is here and you can access all of the old ones. Thank you, Whitney. All right. So one that we are very familiar with that happens everywhere and many of you use are skill-based workshops. These are what they say, a specific skill set meets a variety of needs. You have participant selection. So if you really want to learn about a specific planting style, or if you want to learn about science in the garden, you will likely be able to find a workshop or a series of workshops that provide that information. They're really wonderful building content knowledge. However, sometimes they lack the ongoing support or follow-up, and the costs can vary widely. I think we've all been in a situation where we find something that we need, especially as educators. We want to learn the content, and then it costs hundreds or thousands of dollars. That's not where we want to be. But there's a lot in between, and they're a really accessible way for school garden support organizations to create an outreach to all kinds of groups. I did want to Oh, Green Our Planet. I had some other ones to go, but Green Our Planet. Sarah, want to talk about yours?
Sure thing. Absolutely. So 6 times a year, we hold teacher training workshops. That is open to the public, but we pretty much only get teachers, admin, or parents at these workshops. They're held at different locations, different schools around Las Vegas, 6 times a year on totally different topics from one to the other. It is a full day at a school where teachers, parents, they can get in the garden, experience that hands-on learning, get kind of a high-level education with a speaker on a specialized topic, such as worm towers, special needs in the garden, topics like that. This is another opportunity for teachers to receive the PD credits that are required for the Las Vegas School District. And it's a very in-depth series, and basically it's meant to bring those that are already involved in the garden a high level of education, and if they're beginners, we can bring them to that advanced level in maintaining their garden and teaching in that garden and influencing those kids. It's really collaborative and fun and a very hands-on day. And again, since we're a nonprofit, it's low cost for us, and it does help build relationships, and really it helps build confidence in the teachers. So they have that boost of confidence to bring those kids out into the garden and feel comfortable teaching them. So it's a blast of a day, and it really does work for us. Next slide.
And so I also wanted to show that there's such a variety here. I pulled, for example, DC Greens in Washington, DC. They have a really great menu of workshops that people can attend. You pick a topic, you attend for the day, and that is what you do. These exist all over. You can, Community Groundworks is really, really interesting. Workshops, courses, series. There's all kinds of different organizations out there doing these. And if you're an organization that is interested in providing a workshop, it's also a positive here is that it's somewhat great advertising. I'll come back to the pros, right? So you have a skill set, you're an organization providing something. It's an opportunity for you to highlight that while educating others on what it is that you know best about your work. And finally, there's way too much on this slide. That is apology again, the teacher mind. But we also had to separate when we were working on this workshop series or professional learning community. And we felt like a workshop series was different from a just one-off workshop. And you can see here that Kitchen Communities, Stephanie is on with us, had some workshop series that went multiple days in a row. And Stephanie, do you want to say anything about this quickly?
Yeah. Hey guys, this is Stephanie. Yeah, this is just a sample workshop series from our team in Chicago. So they'll offer the same workshop, multiple runs of it, because Chicago's a very big city. And then we like to give our teachers the full scope of our workshops. And so at the beginning of the year, we'll make sure they know when our back to school workshop's happening, our winter workshop, and going onwards, looking at the spring and then preparing for the summer.
Great. And so sometimes series, like Stephanie was saying, happen over and over again. And then there's these professional learning communities. 8% of you, I think, said that you were part of one. This is an organization that has a series where the PLC, the people come together to work on specific ideas and tasks. I know with Real School Gardens, we have something similar to a professional learning community for our garden coordinators in our partner schools. And it's a great opportunity for people to come together, problem solve, and work on specific things that are regional or school-based or district-based that they may have coming up. And finally, just before we get to the case studies, because I want to make sure we have time for those, are these online tools and training. The cost here could be nil all the way to super expensive. They use videos and experts and snippets of digestible information, and it's on demand. So when you want to know something, you have it. It can reach educators where they are. Add support when staff isn't available. It's really, really great. This came up when we were planning for funders. If you have videos of this, you can actually show people who are outside of our world how impactful what we do is. And it helps with that content piece that sometimes is missing when we can't be there. It can be very costly. There can be technical difficulties. And in many ways, the audience can't directly interact. I do want to show LifeLab, and then I'll show something we use as well that we're launching. But LifeLab also has all of these snippets. And Whitney, do you want to kind of say what these back pocket garden activities are? Or I will. They're pretty straightforward. So you're
no, I can. I just got unmuted.
Oh, great.
These are just little 1-minute videos of what we call back pocket garden activities, which are really simple little activities that you might do if you have 5 minutes at the end of your lesson and just need a little something to fill in the time. And so we've got little videos of those. We also have videos of songs and things on our website. So quick things people can learn and keep in their back pockets. Awesome.
And let me see here, yours. Let me find where my big screen is somehow. All right, there we are. And at Real School Gardens, we actually are launching a digital education platform. And in this, we have all of our lessons for teachers. But then we have videos of our instructional coaches utilizing those videos, those instructional coaches teaching those lessons with students. And the goal here is that we are able to provide what does this lesson actually look like with students. We film the entire thing, and then we take snippets and we point to things that the teacher would need to do should they do that lesson. And our hope here is providing teachers with a how-to, what to look for and what to do when they go outside, maybe for the first time. I'm going to show about 1 minute of it for time so you can get an idea of what this online resource could be. So I think that you guys can't hear it, which is something that we figured out. So what we can do is we can always send out the link if people are interested. Right now, of course, I'm trying to find where the actual PD models are. Sorry, folks. Here we go. There we go. So I heard that you guys can't actually hear it. So I might apologize for that. But one of the things that we provide here is videos of the teacher teaching the lesson with students and showing, if I was a teacher going outside to do this, what I would need to do. If you have questions about that, feel free to ask them and I can answer later. And so now we're going to move to our case studies. I'm going to step out as Real School Gardens, and I'm going to have Sarah and Carrie talk more about their work and go a little bit deeper into the professional development models they use.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. And I will start. The emblem there that you see, eat, read, talk, write, is just one of the curricular projects that I work on. The logo being putting food at the center of science and literacy instruction. And so I work primarily in the area of connecting already standards-based lessons that teachers already have to teach, but making those connect explicitly to the garden. Could I get the next slide, please?
You may.
Thank you. So the examples I'll share today are taken from the context at a school in Napa called Puebla Vista. It is a magnet school. And if you're not familiar with magnet school programming, it's federal funding to implement a specialized curriculum with the express purpose of integrating the community demographic. So it's a school desegregation reform effort. And you're funded for 3 years, and you have that time to develop the program, but also create a sustainability plan for the program. And as dual immersion and environmental science, that focus is not that easy to sustain. Just once the garden was installed, or developed, that we had really surefire ways to continue using that garden. This is what I would refer to as a curricular integration model of professional development. So it works successfully because of some of the characteristics that already exist within the program. For example, the school site already uses a professional learning community structure on a weekly basis. So grade level teams are already meeting regularly. And then we add a couple of times per year where teachers have the planning days, and they sit with each other for a whole day, and they are facilitated in the process of designing their integrated units, integrating both the dual language as well as the science. And my job as the consultant, or in the previous 2 years as a lead teacher, was to provide that curriculum support in both the science understanding, literacy, and garden pedagogy. Because we have been trying to work on aligning units completely 100% to NGSS, as well as integrating the garden in such a way that if you took the garden out of the unit just isn't as robust. We were able this year to implement a garden committee. So as part of their contracted extra duty, 4 teachers participate along with me to help learn what are the maintenance aspects. And so I'm going to just share 2 quick examples of units that we've aligned to Next Generation Science. Could I have the next slide, please? So one unit is for kindergarten, and the goal of this unit was to communicate solutions that will reduce the impact of humans on land, water, air, and other living things. And the context we selected for this was bees. And then in 3rd grade, students are looking at habitats and how organisms survive in habitats. And the trio of habitats we use in the school garden are fava beans, aphids, and ladybugs. Next slide. So alongside some of our environmental science effort was partnering with some citizen science taking place in the Bay Area. So our students were participating in the Great Sunflower Project, and so we adapted observation protocols that were developed for adults and or older children, so that we could have the kindergartners use these to actually practice focused observation and count bees in the Great sure that we're connecting the curriculum with the design of the garden in such a way that it's really, really clear what the maintenance requirements are and how it integrates into the curriculum. Next slide. And in turn, this provides really authentic reasons for them to read and write about bees in their second language or in the target language of Spanish. Next slide. And in 3rd grade, the unit was about life cycles and reproduction. And so the 3rd graders had this situation where they observed, we plant fava beans, which we would do anyway because they're a great cover crop in the fall season. And by the time spring comes around and insects are active, the fava beans become covered with aphids, and then the students learn all about the role of beneficial insects in controlling aphids. But then they realize that the aphids are providing a food source for the ladybugs to reproduce and creating a habitat for that. And so they have to contend with whether or not we should leave the fava beans with the aphids or cut them down. And this was, again, a citizen science project embedded. So those are just a few examples of how we work in our planning days to make sure that teachers understand all of the details that go along with the need to connect the garden very, very closely and explicitly to the curricular instruction for the goal of environmental science.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. And heading it back to Sarah with Green Our Planet for their case study on some of the work that they've done.
Thank you. You can head to the next slide. So I'll give you a little background on Green Our Planet and how we utilize that PD training. So we have built 116 school gardens in Southern Nevada since 2013. We build 3 school gardens per month, August through June. It is far too hot here to build gardens year round. We use brick raised beds, so they have that lifelong, they can stay for a long time. And we also do fruit trees and orchards for schools. And once the garden is put in, like I said, we have the coordinator that visits once a month with the garden team and the farmer that visits once a week with students and teachers. Of course, we have our annual conference, the 6 teacher trainings, but we also try and teach the teachers and admin about financial, give them financial information about maintaining their garden over the years. We do try and offset this cost for the schools as much as possible. We have a crowdfunder on our website. We train them in grant writing, working with sponsors that they get, especially if they're a low-income school. We also do chef demos for the students. The 4th graders are learning about nutrition. So the teachers, a local chef, and Green Our Planet staff will work together to come up with a recipe using the produce in the garden, which also helps teach the teachers about childhood nutrition and what can be eaten in the garden. And that is then put into a presentation for students, and the students get to make the recipe, try it, and they actually enjoy eating chard and all of these kale and things that you wouldn't think of kids eating. So the teachers are trained in nutrition and childhood nutrition. We have wellness standards here in Las Vegas, and that, I believe, counts toward that. We also have student-run farmers market that we coordinate at each of the schools. And the teachers and the students, they are in charge of pricing out their items, planning the farmers markets, advertising their farmers markets, and running the entire thing. So it's the students that are making change and the teachers that are overseeing that process. And we also have a large biannual student farmers market where we have 30 schools, about 300 students come to a location in downtown Las Vegas and sell to downtown employees. So we train the teachers as well as the students on how to interact with the general public and people, you know, that they might not know, different from who's coming to their school, like parents or neighbors. We do provide schools with our pre-K through 5th grade STEM garden curricula, and we have a high school special needs vocational curricula, and those are all to Nevada State Next Gen Science Common Core standards. We do a full day of training with the teachers on how to teach in the garden, how to utilize the curricula, how the lessons can be integrated into the garden. And we can answer questions and help them out throughout the year. And that's another reason why the coordinator's there, to help guide them in their experience in the garden teaching these kids. And then along with the 6 raised beds that we start at most schools, we do plenty of expansions into a lot of different areas. And each of those areas are, we will meet with the teachers at that school and train them specifically on if they're getting a hydroponics set, if they are getting a native or pollinator garden, if they want to start a garden club with kids at their school. So that's mostly the coordinator or our administrative staff that will go into each school and specifically train the teachers and kind of personalize the program for them. So we kind of have our hands in a lot of different buckets, but that is us. You can head to the next slide. And just some pictures. I know we're running out of time, so you can head to the next slide.
We're going to skip this poll for now, just to leave a little bit of time for if there's any final questions. I do want to note that when we were meeting as a group, we left with more questions than we started with. And one of the biggest piece here was, what strategies do organizations use to get access to teachers in schools so that these PDs can happen? And many, many people use lots of different strategies. But we know right now with the so much being controlled outside of a school specifically, sometimes it's hard to get in to be able to work with teachers. And so that's a big conversation that's kind of the next step of this PD. Who's best to go through? Districts, schools, states? Depending on the organization, we found that there's not one answer. Do hybrid models work or singular models work best? And one of the big things that came off of this was funding, right? How are all of these different pieces funded? And while there's a webinar specific to funding, and we didn't talk a lot about it today, I think that one of the questions that came up is, are there funders who like to see specific models? Are there funders who like conferences, or funders who like direct teacher support? And how can support garden, school garden support organizations rectify this with their own goals and missions and visions? So while it seems really straightforward to have these PD models laid out, sometimes it can be a little more complicated when you're talking about school systems. So with 2 minutes left before we wrap up today, curious if any questions have come through. And if you don't have any, you can always email us or contact Stephanie. Stephanie, anything on your end?
Yeah, so hey guys, there was a lot of folks asking some great questions and sharing some really, really great resources for different conferences and things like that. So we're gonna take a moment and compile that list of conferences. I know I'm really curious about a lot of these here. And then also quite a few folks who are wanting to know the Garden Grant webinar link. So that's gonna be at wholekidsfoundation.org, Tristana. You could jump in if that's not the right website. I'm pulling that off the top of my head. But if you Google Whole Kids Foundation, you'll easily get linked to their Garden Grants program, and then you can scroll down on that page and you'll see the webinar link for tomorrow. And then there'll be another one also coming up soon if you do miss that one. And then a lot of other people were asking about the webinar and the resources and things like that. And just as a reminder, this is our National School Garden Network page right here. You can see a link to our forum. And so you can go, if you're starting a new school garden support organization and want some resources, this is gonna be a great place to go. Click here on the Google Group Forum, start poking around, looking around. And then also all of our webinars will be archived right here. The one that we were just talking about with program sustainability and finances, you can see that one right here. And then we'll link this one in as well for those of you that are listening on your phone and want to view what we're viewing. And then there were a couple of questions also specifically for some of our presenters about their program, their models, things like that. And so we'll be happy to make sure we share out the contact information for those folks that are presenting here, and make sure that we can get your questions to the correct person that was presenting or representing their organization today. But other than that, a lot of really great conversation today, a lot of really great information. And I just want to thank Carrie, Sarah, and Vanessa for presenting today, and Whitney and Tristana for helping us put this on. And I want to thank all of you for being here and listening and being part of this network and being part of the School Garden Support Organization network of folks and peoples and professionals and nonprofits. So thanks everyone. If anyone else has anything to add in as a presenter, please unmute yourself and join in. But otherwise, we'll close out for today.
Thank you everybody for joining.
Awesome. Thanks everyone.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Thank you.